Hello, YouTubers. This is Gurley Vines. Welcome to another episode of my tarot journal. On the last episode, I was very tired and I drew the Knight of Cups and the Two of Swords. And I said that the Knight of Cups is a very idealistic, romantic, creative type of person. Talked a little bit about the movie Knight of Cups by Terrence Malick, which I've never seen, and the Two of Swords I mistakenly referred to as mental respite, which would be more of the Four of Swords. Two of Swords is actually more of a mental preparation, stealing one's mind for whatever project or situation is to come, but the implications are basically the same. That in order to have an idealistic state of mind, your mind needs to not be in disarray. It needs to either be in respite or it needs to be steeled and organized and at peace, more or less, in order for you to maintain an idealistic outlook. When you're younger and you're more carefree, and you don't have as many bills, or you probably don't have any bills, and everything's kind of taken care of, relationships are always tricky, but they're maybe not as tricky when you're younger, because everybody's still trying to figure themselves out, and they give each other more of a chance. Anyways, things are a little bit simpler when you're younger. Although you have hormones and whatnot, and so I think it's a little bit easier to be idealistic than it is when you get older and you've been around the block a few times and you see just how wacky the world can be, just how callous people can be, and how chaotic situations can get. And after seeing that over many years, you have to constantly replenish your mental reserves in order to maintain an idealistic outlook. And I would like to see that as being more refined, a more refined and more realistic idea of whatever your ideals are. Ideals that can actually be implemented in the real world. So I'm going to try to, every video I'm going to try to improve upon the last video. This video, I'm going to try to not move my head so much. My wife watched my last couple of episodes and said that I bobbled my head a lot, and I'm looking around, and a lot of it's because of the glare. I have a very amateur setup here. I have a grainy. She also said there's a time delay whenever she watched it, and I don't think I've really watched my own episodes all the way through. I just kind of throw them up there. And so it's a little clunky. It's very low budget. I mean, it's no budget at all. And I'm just working with what I've got, and I see that there's been some views. People have viewed it, and I'm sure that they've probably only got so far on the video and they were just like, oh, I cannot finish this. But there were no downlights, there were no dislikes or whatever. There was just the single solitary like, which may be me. It could be me, or maybe it's not. Maybe I have a secret fan. I would never tell. Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna move on. And try not to move my head so much, even though I have this glare right here, which it hurts me to just look at that, because I can see myself on the screen right now, and I just cannot stand seeing that screen glare reflected back at me. It drives me crazy. So I can do this. There we go. Also, my wife's asleep in the other room. I'm going to try to speak clearly and enunciate, but I'm also going to try to not be too loud. So if that fucks the video up, then I'm sorry, I guess. Doing what I can do with this lack of technology and knowledge and know-how and whatnot. So, oh, look at those two cards. I'm going to shuffling. So you see there's no preparation. This is just me coming up with this on the fly. This is, if you're new to watching these videos, I do this as just a personal exercise. It gives me new perspective. I mean, I read tarot as kind of a psychological, personal psychological inquiry into my own thought processes. But I think that the exhibitionist aspect of it, of putting it on YouTube, is helpful too, because since other people are watching it, it forces me to be more concise and a little more clear as to what I actually really think about how two different tarot card energies mix together. Also, I've said this in the last two videos, I don't believe in spirits. Really, I mean, I don't disbelieve in the sense that I don't know. I'm kind of agnostic. So I don't believe in a God, but I don't know there's not a God. If there is one, I don't know why he would make the world as it is. It seems like he could have done a much better job. Or she could have done a much better job. Or it. Maybe it's a dog up there. Who knows? But it's a very interesting. Interesting is not an interesting word, but it's an interesting result, to say the least. A lot of novelty. As Terence McKenna would say, there's a lot of novelty to be had in our world, and I'm sure that there are multiple dimensions that we're not aware of. I've tapped into those via some psychedelic type experiences in my day, and I think that, or that could just be my own mind. There are different dimensions in the human mind that I think go untapped. But anyways, I also would like to tap into different dimensions with the tarot, and I use the Thoth tarot. So I'm just going to keep. I don't really have a. I'll shuffle it on my knee here. There you go. See? It's so random. So I have to improvise. Alright, one last little twiddle. And I'm going to pull two cards. Let's see. Voila! Ooh. So we have Art in my left hand, which is also called Temperance in other decks. And then we have the Seven of Wands, Valor, in my right hand, which is called Valor in this deck, and I'm not sure what it's called in other decks. So we're going to start with let me set this one in my right hand, the Seven of Wands down. So, take a good look at this card here. There's a glare all over the screen. It says Art right here. I believe that this is the path of Samek on the Tree of Life. And so this is the first major arcana card that I've come up with in this series. And all the major arcana cards are very intricate and complex, much more so than the minor arcana cards and the court cards, although I wouldn't underestimate those cards either for their complexity. This is the 14th card, which comes after the Death card and then before the Devil. And so remember, I'm coming up with this off the fly. This card is taking opposing energies. This represents taking opposing energies within oneself, or if you're asking a question regarding a relationship or your workplace or something like that. It's basically taking all of the different energies and then throwing them into a pot, as this two-faced androgynous figure is doing here, is taking these opposing energies of this person's two sides, throwing them into a pot with this red phoenix and then this white tiger overlooking, and she's stirring them into the pot in order to make something new and novel, unique from that. It's a positive card. So it's bringing these energies together and integrating them in such a way that they harmonize and they turn into something that can be used and implemented. The card that would precede this card spiritually, so death comes before this card, and that is a card that deals with transformations. Get out with the old and with the new, sloughing off all of the aspects of oneself that are no longer needed, so one can transform, so one can die and then rise again as a new type of person. This follows through with that theme of transformation, but it's not as dramatic. It's more of assimilation instead of editing oneself. It's mushing together these different aspects. And then the card that comes after this is the Devil, and that is like it's almost, the Devil is almost the shadow side of the self that is maybe sloughed off from the artistic transformation of the different aspects of oneself, and it's sloughed off and it's sort of left in the nether region of your subconscious, and it sort of festers there and you become entrapped by it. And so it can represent like addictions and lust and relationships that are abusive, that are not good for you. And in other tarot decks, the Devil is two figures, and they're loosely chained to this beast-like figure, and who is the Devil, and they are entrapped by this beast. So, but we're not talking about the Devil right now. I'm just giving you some context where this card is concerned. So this card, the spiritual predecessor, as I was going to mention before but got sidetracked because I'm a Gemini, among other reasons, is the Lover card, which is associated to Gemini. The Lover's card is a marriage. It's the marriage that precedes this card. It is these two figures, the two figures that are shown in this one figure. They are on the precipice of getting married, right? And then the roles of these two little beasties right here are switched. So this phoenix is white, and then this lion is red. So the colors of the marriage and the lovers, all the roles are reversed. Everything is, the colors are switched, and the beings are separate. They have not quite merged yet. And that card represents Gemini as a mental card, and it's looking at both sides of a situation. The Lovers also represents, in terms of relationship, exploring a relationship, and all of the it can also have sexual undertones because it is the Lovers. It could represent romance, exploring a relationship with somebody else. It can definitely mean that. but on the spiritual plane and in a more practical sort of affairs, it represents exploring all sides of a situation. And this card, as the spiritual successor, is, or the next step, what happens afterwards is, and this is related to Sagittarius, which is also a mutable sign like Gemini, but it's a fire sign. And fire sign has to do, it's not just thinking. Air is about thinking. Fire is about doing. So getting it done, you know. And it is taking it is assimilating all of the conclusions that it came to through the analysis of looking at both sides, and then it is implementing those conclusions into an action, into a creative output, which is why this is called art. Okay? Get another little glance at that. It's a beautiful card. Very beautiful. It's saying something around the you know, there's some esoteric writing around the halo that goes around here. I don't know what that means. I'm not an expert on tarot. Probably shouldn't have this channel, but you get the gist of it, right? This is the card where, so in reference to like me making these videos, right? I've seen other people do tarot videos before. I looked at the pros and I looked at the cons of those videos. And then I looked at the side of my own experience in doing tarot. And then I looked at what I could possibly bring to it. And in my crude analysis, my crude lover's Gemini analysis of what other people have done and then what I can do, and then the technology that I have, this is the artistic output that you're getting right now, is in all of its glory. This is what you're getting. Deal with it. All right, so you got your art card right here, and then the next card is the Seven of Wands. And like Sagittarius, Wands deal with fire. They deal with creative output. They deal with getting stuff done. And this card is got 6 cards. There's 6 wands that are crossed, and they look pretty much symmetrical, like they all go together. They seem to all match. And then up through the middle is this crooked wand that is clashing with the harmony of those other 6 wands that are crossing. And so the 6 of Wands is victory. It's like you have come to a victorious conclusion regarding a creative endeavor that you have pursued, correct? And the 7 of Wands is, there is a clash of wills. Now the 5 of Wands is a clash of wills that has to deal with competition from like a healthy competition among peers or among other people. This card, I would say, is I'm trying to figure out how to differentiate this card from the 5 of Wands, because these are very similar. I'm going to put this card down so I can focus on this one. This card is very similar to the 5 of Wands, in my opinion. But if you look at the order of operations, so the 4 of Wands, as we mentioned in a previous video, is the first video, is the completion of a creative endeavor. You have gone through the steps of creating something, and then there's a completion. The 5 of Wands is now where other people get involved, other creative factors get involved, and they're competing with you in order to, they're competing with you. And and hopefully that you will succeed and your output will be the superior output of that competition. And then the Six of Wands represents victory. You have emerged victorious in that competition with the other people who have brought their product to the table. And then the Seven of Wands is like maintaining that spot. So it's like the Five of Wands is fighting for ascension, and the Seven of Wands is maintaining that status. And then after that is the Eight of Wands, which represents further communication, and then expansion of one's energy. So there's always kind of this ebb and flow when it comes to any kind of creative endeavor. You can't just stagnate, and you can't just, and maybe this is the cards the universe is talking to me right now. It's saying, Anthony, if you're going to get anybody to like your video aside from yourself, which I'm not saying that's who it is liking those videos. I got a secret admirer. Thank you so much, Anthony. Yeah. Anyways, let me get some coffee. But yeah, I mean so there's always kind of like you create something and then you make it better for yourself, and then once you put it out there, you are going to be scrutinized by other people, and they're going to bring their own thing to the table, and maybe it will, kind of like what I did, it will draw from what they've seen you bring to the table, right? They may kind of copy your output and then make it a little bit better, or they might bring something entirely different, which just completely blows yours out of the water. But whatever it is, you have to stay competitive. You can't just be zen and passive. Even in the artistic world, you have to be competitive, and you have to stay on top of your game. There's no getting around it. And also because you want people to pay attention to you. But this doesn't just have to do with art. This has to do with anything competitive. Of course, in sports is the most obvious example. If you want your team to stay on top. You don't want them to be a bottom of the barrel team that whose games nobody goes to watch. Everybody wants to go see the winner. And in terms of relationships, people don't hang around with people that don't have people. It takes money to make money. It takes clout to gain clout. It takes friends to make friends. It takes signs of success in order to become more successful. And the more success you have, then arguably the easier it is to keep it, although you will have more and more people trying to bring you down. In the Patch Tarot deck, there's a Patch, which is a little cartoon figure, and he's got a stick. He's got a singular stick, and he's beating off these other hands that are reaching up like zombie hands, and he's standing on unequal ground, like sort of uneven footing, and he's got a stick, and he's beating off these hands that are rising up, and they're like trying to drag him down. And that's kind of what I see in this card. You're trying to beat off people from trying to drag you down from your ascended platform. So when I put these two cards together, I'm right now I'm thinking that I mention my real name. Eventually it's going to come out what my real name is. But I'm Gurley Vines. That's me. Yeah, Gurley Vines. I'm a girly guy. Okay, so these two cards. There is the harmonizing of different aspects of oneself or one's environment or ideas, just harmonizing those different aspects, throwing it into the cauldron, and then brewing it up into something that can be used in a positive manner, mixed with maintaining one's spot through valor, through strength of will, making sure that you fight off any negative influences that keeps you from becoming and or remaining victorious in the fight to have your creations be heard. Because not just on YouTube, but in the real world, we want our creations. We want our word and our will to be broadcast, and we want it to be heard. Even the most quiet of us. Even, I think some people, they express themselves through silence. And even in that silence, they want to be heard and respected. Even if it's the lowest energy there is. That is their expression of who they are. Now, not to say that that's all they are. That might just be a stage that precedes a better stage that hopefully they get to. But wherever you are in your development, you want yourself to be heard. You want to be respected. And the one way to do that is by harmonizing all different sides of yourself, harmonizing the good and the bad. Nobody's perfect. My delivery here is not perfect. You have to make the most. Make the most of yourself. Play to your strengths. Recognize your weaknesses, and then you have to work on those weaknesses through strength of will, and then find a way to make that useful for yourself and for the world around you. Not just for yourself. You don't want to be completely selfish. You always want to assimilate into the world because you are a part of the world. No man or woman is an island. And so another thing about this art card is that in both of these cards, if you put them both together, is that there's a sense of competition here, but there's also a sense of competition in this card too, because in order to harmonize two different aspects, you're going to have to see how those two different sides fit together. In a team of people, you're going to have some people on your team that are not going to share your vision, and they may not even like you, but you still have to harmonize, and you still have to take those different pieces and try to get the most out of them. Play to their strengths. Play to their weaknesses. And find a way to bring it all together. That's what a good leader does. And a good leader is somebody that is aware enough of the different energies. They're not just caught up in their own energy, and their own energy, and their own mind, and their own will. This is just what I want to do, and you're just going to follow regardless of what you think or what you're feeling or what have you. They recognize, they're able to read other people to an extent, and they're able to get what they need out of them based on what they have to offer. Now, if they don't have something to offer, then you may have to slough them off. You may have to, if they just don't bring anything to the table, then eventually you will have to, you can't use them. And that's also a part of the assimilation, right? That's part of and then they can go somewhere where they can assimilate a little bit better and their environment. So these cards both speak to the transformational process and how it can be a violent uphill battle to assimilate different aspects, and how it's not easy, and you can't just meditate and be zen and be passive, but it's a fight, because life is a fight for survival. And it doesn't have to be bleak, but often it can be, because some people don't have the energy to fight. They don't have that kind of spirit, but you have to kind of see yourself as a warrior and see other people to some extent as pieces. You know, if you have a thing that you want to get done, you want to make a movie, say you want to make a movie, you have to see those people as kind of like pawns in your game, but you still have to respect them because they are people, right? And they can sabotage your project. They can sabotage what you're doing. So not only do you have to be fierce in the sense that you have to use them, but you also have to be respectful in the sense that they are people and they have their own designs and their own wills, and they probably want to take your spot. But in the meantime, until they have done that, you should use them in a respectful way that harmonizes all of the energies for your benefit and then hopefully for theirs. And that's all I've got. These videos, this last video was about 30 minutes. This one's about 30 minutes. The first one was 45 minutes, I think, and that was because it was an introductory video, but I don't see any reason for these to go over 30 minutes. I sort of run out of steam. This card, I wish I had. On the next episode, I'll definitely have to figure out what that says. I think I knew at one point, but man, there's so much going on in these cards. It's hard to, like this card, the Valor card, is Mars and Leo. There's something to be said about that, but I don't know quite what to say about that. I know Leo is a fixed sign, and Mars is, you know, how you go about doing things, basically how you compete in the world, I believe. So there's still more to be said, but that's my on-the-fly freestyle of what I see in those two cards. Hope you enjoyed this video. Have a wonderful day.